So before we start with our discussion, let us have the objectives. First is to classify artworks based on the kinds, sources of subjects and methods used, and second is to analyze the content of an artwork in terms of its factual, conventional, and subjective meaning.
Good day, future teachers! We're the group 5. So, before we start, I would like to introduce myself to each and every one of you. This is Roland Alvarado, and I am one of the reporters for today. So, now let's proceed to our topic. What is a subject in art? In visual art, the subject refers to the main focus of a work. The person, the object, the scene, or event that is shown or described. It is what the artist wants the viewer to notice and think about. So the subject can appear anywhere in the artwork, but it is always the most recognizable and important element regardless of its size or position. So the subject helps give meaning to the artwork. For many viewers or for many people, the subject makes the piece easier to understand or relate to, especially when it represents something familiar. So, artists use subjects to express emotions, tell stories, or share ideas. So, without a clear subject, it can be hard to know what is or what the artwork is about or what the artist is trying to say. So, for example, in Leonardo da Vinci's painting Mona Lisa, the woman in the portrait is the subject. She is the central figure and everything else. So, like the background is their support, her presence. So, whether it's a portrait like this, a landscape of a mountain, or a painting of a people dancing, the subject is what gives the artwork gives what is the artwork its main purpose or purpose and meaning. So another example is in a painting of a fruit bowl. Uh, the fruit bowl is the subject because it's the main thing the artist wants you to notice. So um, the subject is usually the most recognizable part of the artwork. It might be in the center or anywhere else in the piece, but your eyes are naturally drawn to it because it stands out the most.
So, for the representational or figurative art, it is one of the oldest and most familiar forms of artistic expressions. As the text explains, these types of arts depicts objects or events from the real world in a way that it is easily recognizable. It involves a clear visual reference to things we see around us, people, landscapes, animals, and everyday items or everyday objects. Representational or figurative arts also portrays real life objects, people, or events in a way that it is easily recognizable. It also reflects to the real world, as I've said earlier. It often conveys strong visual references, allowing viewers to connect with the subject matter instantly. For example, is the work of Leonardo da Vinci, the Mona Lisa. It is one of the classical example, and it shows or it clearly represents a real woman with lifelike features or emotions. So it is very real life. We can see the painting Mona Lisa. We can compare that to a real woman in real life. Next is the non-representational arts. It's also known as non-objective or abstract art. does not aim to represent or depict objects, people, or scenes from the real world. Unlike representational art, it avoids recognizable subjects like faces, landscapes, or animals. Instead, it focuses purely on visual elements such as colors, lines, shapes, and texture to create a meaning and evoke emotions. This type of art can be very expressive. Although there's no clear image or identity, the artist may convey a feeling, an idea, or even reaction to a personal or social experience. Non-representational works also invites viewers to interpret the art freely, so the viewers of the art can make their own representation or even investigation or their own opinion to the said masterpiece or the said art without being guided by any specific subject or a story. Next is abstractions. Well, so in arts, it refers to the departure from realistic representation. Instead of showing objects, people, or scenes exactly as they appear in real life, abstract art alters or simplify or exaggerates them to highlight shapes, colors, and ideas. It also allows artists to express the meaning beyond the physical appearance of things. Abstraction exists on a continuum. On the end, there is a representational abstraction where the subject is still recognizable but altered in form such as distorted face or a styled landscape. So on the other end, the second one is the non-representational abstraction. It also called as non-objective art, which has no connection to any visible objects or figures at all. This type of abstractions focuses purely on the visual elements like lines, colors, textures without referencing to the real world.
Kinds of subjects is an idea and inspiration for the subjects in art. It can be anything you want them to be, whatever your imagination conjures up. The most important thing is to choose a subject matter that interests you, something that you can happily immerse yourself in while working on your piece. The first one is still lifes. These are groups of inanimate objects arranged in an indoor setting. And the arrangement is like that to show particular human interests and activities. For example, the still life of Chinese and Japanese painters usually show flowers, fruits, and leaves still in their natural setting, unplucked from the branches. Today, the focus is on the exciting arrangement and combinations of objects, shapes, and color. There are different types of example for still lifes, and it is shown just by, you could even do it on your own, like taking a picture of your stuffed animal in a very dramatic setting. The next one is animals. They have been represented by artists from almost every age and place. The earliest known painting and representations of animals are on the walls of caves. The carabao has been a favorite subject of Filipino artists. The Bananos have an animal or form of sari manok as their proudest prestige symbol. Animals have been used as symbols in conventional religious art. For example, the dove stands for Holy Spirit and representation of the Trinity. The fish and lamb are symbols of Christ. The phoenix is the symbol of resurrection. The peacock is the symbol of immortality through Christ. While there's also an example in Egypt where they present a cat as their god. They worship the cat as their protector. The next ones are portraits or portraitures. People have always been intrigued by the human faces as an index of the owner's character. As an instrument of expression, it is capable of showing a variety of moods and feeling. It is a realistic likeness of a person in sculptures, paintings, drawing, or print, but it needs to be a photographic likeness. For example, like the Mona Lisa. That is an example of a portrait. Or a painting of Marie Antoinette. And the sculptures from Greek mythology that depicts the stories of the gods and goddesses and their culture. The next part will be discussed by Trisha Aguilar.
Now, let's talk about figures. Sculptors have traditionally focused on the human body, whether naked or clothed, as their main subject. This is because the human form is complex and challenging to represent. Artists explore its structure, movement, and proportion in different styles, like realistic and idealized, like the statues of ancient Greece, to abstract and modern interpretation. The ancient Greeks in particular were known for sculpting the human body with grace and perfect proportions. They believed that physical beauty reflected inner godliness and divine qualities, so their gods and goddesses were shown with flawless, ideal human features. For them, the body wasn't just a physical form but just a simple and moral, spiritual excellence. Let's say, for example, the figure sculpture gallery by Philip Farud show the realistic human figure sculptures featuring detailed clay and stone pieces. These intricate pieces capture the beauty and complexity of the human form, serving as an artistic appreciation tool and teaching tool. Next is everyday life. Artists have long been interested in capturing everyday life, the ordinary moments and routines of the people around them. Many painters choose to observe and portray people doing their daily activities, like working, playing, and socializing, to reflect the real world they live in. These kinds of artworks are called genre painting. They show common scenes such as farmers threshing rice, men watching cockfights, people selling candles, musicians, and so on. Rather than focusing on heroes, myths, or grand events, this painting highlight the simple familiar parts of life, giving value and beauty to the ordinary. For example, the Sachi art artist by Nidia Chakova creates realistic urban scenes featuring people in cities. Her use of light, shadow, and reflection creates a calm, thoughtful mood, often capturing quiet, emotional moments. Her work transforms ordinary city scenes into poetic, reflecting images focusing on human presence and atmosphere. Lastly is history and legends. History and legends are both important themes in art. History is based on facts we can prove, while legends are stories passed down through traditions. Even if we can verify them, in many cases, especially when looking at the distant past, it's hard to tell where history ends and legends begins. Artists often turn to both history and legends for inspiration. Even if a painting or sculpture isn't meant to be factual record, it can still give clues about the past, like what people were, how they lived, what symbols shown social status, or what kinds of homes and transportation they use. In the Philippines, legends like Malakas and Maganda, the first man and woman in Filipino mythology, and Maria Makiling, a mountain goddess or fairy, have inspired many artists. These stories, through mythical or important parts of Filipino culture, and are often brought to life through paintings and sculptures, helping to preserve tradition and connect people with their cultural roots. Example, Tolentino created this monument after doing deep historical research. Even interviewing Bonifacio relatives, he chose to portray Bonifacio wearing a barong Tagalog and shoes, to show that he was dignified and respectable, not just a warrior. The bronze statues were cast in Italy, and the marble parts were built under the guidance of a famous architect.
Let us now move on to the discussion of music. So the term music comes from the Greek word musike, which means the art of muse. And according to Merriam-Webster, music is defined as vocal, instrumental, or mechanical sounds having rhythm, melody, or harmony. What is music as an art? Music is an art form that unites people through shared experiences and emotions. It acts as a means of communication between people as music composed by one person can evoke different feelings in others. So music is a way of communication and it is where people share their experiences and emotions. Now let's talk about the general timeline of music. Starting from 50,000 years ago, humans likely used their body for rhythm and communication. So for example, we used our hands for clapping and our feet for stomping. Next is 40,000 years ago, where the first instrument was discovered. So bone flutes were discovered in caves in Germany. In 3000 before Christ era or the ancient civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and China used music in religions and ceremonies. It is also when instruments like lyres and drums became more common. Then in 500 before Christ era or the ancient Greece, music became a huge part of education and philosophy.
After discussing the Asian civilizations, let's continue to time travel as we explore the timeline of music. Next is Renaissance period, happened in 1400s to 1600s Common Era. So what do you think music sounded like back then? You're right. This is when music started becoming more expressive and emotional. Also, in this era, picture choirs singing in Latin, violins echoing through giant cathedrals, very castle core. Instrument like violin started to shine. After Renaissance period, we have Baroque period. Happened in 1600 to 1750 Common Era. Music became bold, extra, and a little theatrical. This period gave us opera. Yes, the singing that makes wine glasses crack, and orchestras. After that, we have Classical period. Happened in 1750 to 1820 Common Era. Then music became elegant, structured, and refined. This is also when public concerts started to pop off, not just for kings and churches anymore. And yes, Beethoven starts still, but wait till the next era. And it is the Romantic period, happened in 1800s to early 1900s. Now we're entering the emotional roller coaster. This is where music was basically the original Dear Diary moment. Everything was big, loud, passionate, and heartfelt. Love, war, dreams, tragedy. They poured their soul into every note of the music. So, what song that never fails to hit you right in the feels? You can comment or tell your seatmate. Next era is modern period, happened in 1900s up until today. And finally, we've reached this era. Jazz, pop, hip hop, K-pop, rock, EDM. Music became global and personal. Thanks to technology, we now have music on demand, music videos, and even AI created tracks. So, what do you think? Did technology make music better or worse? Share your insight in the comment box. These are the genres today. Let's run through some of the most popular genres now. We have classical, pop, rock, hip hop or rap, jazz, R&B or also known as rhythm and blues, country and K-pop. An example for each genre. For classical, we have Symphony Number 5 by Ludwig van Beethoven. For popular music, we have Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. For rock, we have Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. For hip hop or rap, we have Humble by Kendrick Lamar. For jazz, we have So What by Miles Davis. For rhythm and blues, If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys. For country, we have Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. While for K-pop, we have What Is Love by Twice. Each one is different but they all speak to something human, emotion, culture, and creativity. So here's another question. If music evolved this much from cathedrals to K-pop, what's next? And who knows, maybe you will be the part of the future of music. That's all for music and thank you for listening.